Hi, I'm Steve. You can call me Steve. You may or may not be aware of the debate surrounding biofuels. Most people assume it just means putting corn in the gas tank or something. While corn is a major source of biofuel, it's not the only one. There are a number of approaches using all sorts of things, and most of them happen to be a shining example of doing it wrong. We started using corn because it's not a fossil fuel, and therefore not a contributor to climate change. Corn itself is made of starch in the bit we eat, in the kernels. Starch is composed of long chains of sugar molecules. If those chains are broken into their component molecules and those sugars fed to certain microbes, it gets turned into beer, wine, scotch, bourbon, and other beverages I am sure you know nothing about. The alcohol in all of these is called ethanol. And making it was the second chemical reaction humanity mastered. Any guesses on the first? Who said fire? Who said something sarcastic? Who just stared blankly at the screen? Anyway, turning corn into ethanol to go into your gas tank is the exact same reaction as turning it into booze. However, corn is food. On a planet with 7 billion people to feed, using anything edible as fuel is asinine. Fortunately, there's a better option. Eat the corn, and then use the cob and the stalk and the leaves and that silky tassely stuff at the end as your fuel source. So all of those inedible bits are made of cellulose. So like starch, cellulose is made of long chains of sugar molecules. The only difference is how those molecules are bound together. Starch comes apart quite easily, cellulose not so much. However, with a little persuasion and some pre-treatment, cellulose can be converted into ethanol without threatening the food supply. There's a company in Ottawa called Iogen that is trying to make that happen. Sadly, even using cellulose is still not that efficient. When you use microbes to turn sugars into ethanol, you lose a third of your carbon atoms as carbon dioxide before it ever hits the fuel tank. Incidentally, this is where the bubbles come from in champagne and beer. If the whole point of this process is to reduce carbon emissions, creating CO2 in the manufacturing process is a textbook case of doing it wrong. Finally, this loss of CO2 reduces your yield, which is just how much ethanol you get out at the end of the process. Generally, you want your yields to be pretty high, so this is a bad thing. Finally, ethanol is actually a terrible fuel. It's got a low energy density, which is just a measure of how much energy is stored in 1 liter of the fuel. A tank full of ethanol just doesn't have the same bang that a tank full of gasoline does, which means you need to burn more of it to get your car to go the same distance. Corn was the first attempt at a renewable, non-fossil source of fuel, and generally speaking, the first attempt at anything tends to be a dismal failure. There are better approaches to this, but there is not room in this video to talk about them. I guess I'll just have to make another video. Thank you for watching. I've been Steve for Curiosity by Let's Talk Science. You can learn more about biofuels at www.explorecuriosity.org.